people, good greetings and welcome to this story that I want to share with you. Is it all rosy up in the air every time? I don't think so. After being in this industry for quite a long time, I'm just telling you certain things that I look back and still can't erase from my memory, or as somebody say, from my hard disk. You understand? Things I look back and I realize that what profession is. Yes, flying is exciting, flying is interesting, it is also challenging, and it's rewarding. We have a fair share of all these things that I mentioned: exciting, challenging, rewarding, everything you can think of. But today I'm here to share with you, in all my almost 26 years of career, something that I will never forget, even though I see something like that, and I've subtitled it, "The Day Mother Nature Punished Us." Mother Nature punishing us. Question: what do we do? I dedicate this video to Captain Kofi Fosu, who was my captain at that time, about the story I'm about to tell, Captain Kofi Fosu, and all the crew I was with on that flight. Mother Nature gave us a real spanking and scolding, okay? And I just want to let you know that it's not all rosy every time. You fly into smooth air and everything, but the days that Mother Nature gets rough, trust me, there will be some of these experiences you will never erase. Every pilot who has even done at least 5 years has a story to tell of one day, after sometimes going through so much of turbulence, weather, storms, and everything you can think of. But there's a single day's event that sticks and stays with him even after retirement. Or there's a single day event that when all those people meet, they still discuss, and you ask yourself that, wow, can Mother Nature be this rude? Yes, it was. And Mother Nature gave us a very good punishing. What happened? Tuesday, 25th August, 1998. I was only like 6 months flying that DC-9 aircraft in Ghana Airways, in those days. So I was with my captain, Captain Kofi Fosu, and we're supposed to make a scheduled flight from Accra to Bamako. That's Mali, the northwest direction of Accra, about a 2-hour flight from Accra to Bamako. Then from Bamako to Ouagadougou, which also from there you'll be heading eastbound from Bamako to Ouagadougou. It's about a 1-hour flight. And from Ouagadougou to Accra was also another 1 hour and 20-minute flight, sort of. That was scheduled. That's what we're supposed to operate for that day, on that Tuesday afternoon. So I must say the flight between Accra and Bamako was not all that eventful. There were still some thunderstorms along the route and everything, but we kept swerving as and when we could and everything. And in those days, remember, meteorological information was not so coherent like today. So they just give you the pressure systems and the fronts, and you are supposed to figure out stuff. As to when a storm will start and when it will end, we didn't have all those sophisticated radars to know. So you could just figure it out from the pressure chart. So, like I said, 2-hour flight to Bamako, not really eventful. It was from Bamako to Ouagadougou, that 1-hour flight, that the signs of something doesn't look right for the day began to, the signals began to be so strong. And we started seeing some thunderstorms. I have a separate video which we're going to discuss a lot of meteorological factors. Okay, then you get to understand what a thunderstorm is. When we say thunderstorm, what does it really mean to the flight and everything? I have a separate video on that. Okay, so we got to Ouagadougou and we saw a few things hanging around the airport, but Ouagadougou was talking about the impending storm. Winds began to change here and there, but not so significant. We touched down. So after touchdown, in each of these stations, our policy in the company was to spend at least 40 minutes in each station, where during that 40 minutes, disembarking passengers go off, embarking passengers, luggage going off, luggage coming in, fuel if we needed it. Everything was supposed to happen within 40 minutes for us to leave the parking stand. So we call it the turnaround time. So we're just doing our things to stick to the 40 minutes turnaround time. And Ouagadougou, just when we're hitting the 40th minute, or let's say maybe the 32nd minute or something, the storm that we started seeing around the airport now just came, if I should say, zoomed in to the Ouagadougou airport. And I'm talking of violent storms. And here again, to those of us in this part of the world and understand a little bit of meteorology, know that from Easter time right down to the beginning of Harmattan in November, this part of the world doesn't really look too, if I should say, pleasant in terms of weather. You have so much afternoon storms because of the morning heat and so many things. And the storms in that part of the world where it's more of deserts, trust me, winds are violent. You could literally feel the aircraft shake and everything. And then came a heavy downpour for about 30 minutes to about 50 minutes. So the captain and I were discussing, it looks like we are going to be stuck here. This thing doesn't look like something which is going to abate now. And like I hinted earlier on, remember, we didn't have in those days the radar sophistications and things to know. If we had seen it on radar, we would have known when it was going to sweep through or dissipate. We would have known. But we didn't have all these things. They just give you a chart and everything. You are just one supposed to figure it out that within these 4 hours, this will happen. Which part of the 4 hours will it start? Which part of the 4 hours will it end? We didn't know. All we just knew is that a storm will happen within this time. So as it did happen, we couldn't really tell when it was going to dissipate. And things started getting worse. The wind started picking up. Even you could tell that beyond from the information coming from the air traffic control in terms of the weather, you could tell that it's not even something the aircraft would even want to handle. So after being on ground for about almost 1 hour, then interestingly, there was a 10 to 12 minute break in the storm, whereby everything just kind of, if I should quote, ceasefire, and nothing was happening. And because we had already boarded the passengers before this storm zoomed in, all we just asked for the tower is permission to start our engines and get out of here. The only 12-minute window to do to get out before anything gets worse. Or we thought in our mind's eye that okay, the greater part of it has swept through the airport and it's time to go for our 1 hour journey into Accra, our 1 hour 20 minutes journey into Accra. So here we are. We taxied really quick and we took off. And we set our course heading towards Accra. That route passes over a place called Navrongo in Ghana airspace. Then it goes over Tamale. Then from Tamale through Tafo in our days to Koforidua. Then you are in Accra. So we thought, all we just need to do is just get out of the storm, and that will be it. So as soon as we set course, and I was the one flying. I'll also tell you about that concept in our cockpits. I mean, who flies and everything, what are the duties, etc. So I was the one flying, and the moment I set course, the captain was searching through the radar to see where the storms were, so I will know how to dodge it. The next thing I saw, something like a signature on the radar. As I was flying like so, okay, looking like so, the radar is in between the two of us, so I could just see something like a signature on the radar, like the radar just radar went to hell. Our only thing that could tell us where storms were so that we could avoid went to hell. Everything just kaput. And that was it. Just did some signal like this, like a cosine or a sine signal, and that was it. So now we didn't even know where storms were and everything. But we could start feeling some turbulence, and the next thing we saw, we had entered what we call a level 5 thunderstorm. And just to give you an idea of what a thunderstorm is, when you enter, what is the concern? Everything works against you when you are in a thunderstorm. You can bounce up like a yo-yo. Those of you who have played yo-yos. So today, now, you could bounce up like 3,000 feet up, Then the next second, you are 6,000 feet down. Man, what it does to your stomach and stuff is another story for another day. That's what we call severe turbulence. Because in a thunderstorm cloud, we have air which is rushing up like 10,000 feet a minute. And at the same time, there could be air also coming down 12,000 feet a minute. Sometimes you are caught in between the 10,000 going up and the 12 going down. So you see like the aircraft is almost like it's struggling to stay afloat. It's struggling to stay afloat. The next thing you see, maybe the one which is coming down 12,000 feet a minute, that's a downdraft, wins the 10,000 one going up. So then you see you are 6,000 feet down again. Then you see, I guess at a certain point in time, the one going up 10,000 feet a minute wins. So it's almost like you are just like a yo-yo for so you are in that storm. That is for turbulence and flight controls. Things begin. Even sometimes the autopilot just packs off on you and say, okay, enough of it. I didn't sit in flying school with you, so please take your aircraft and fly it yourself. And that also increases your workload because you are controlling altitude, you are controlling speed and everything. Now, for those of us who know something a little about thunderstorms, rain starts at the top as ice. And it's only when it's coming through warm layers to the ground that it starts to melt. So if you are at that altitude in a thunderstorm, you ain't going to see rain. The rain that those on the surface see as water coming down, we don't see. We see ice pellets. Some of them are big like golf balls, even bigger than golf balls, and just come on your windscreen. But the manufacturer has designed the aircraft such that, as we go, we fly up into the sky with our icing systems are on, the windscreens are turned into plastic. You know, as it's warming, as the windshield is warming, it's turning into plastic for the time that it's warming, so that when these ice pellets hit it, it doesn't crack. It just like, we call it impact resistance. So it just resist it, and you know, you don't see anything. In between my windscreen and his windscreen, the right side of the windscreen, is the middle part of it is where the wires that go to warm the windshield are located, but of course it's covered so you don't see, but it's the middle part of the two windscreens. So when I switch on, or whenever we switch on the anti-icing system, it goes through a certain process, just like an iron. Take it like an iron. Usually whatever gets, it goes through some thermostating process through the middle of the windscreen, goes into the windscreen starts to react by turning into plastic. So that whenever these ice pellets hit it, it will impact the resistance. But that day, one of those ice pellets coming up from the sky went to hit the middle part of the two windscreens. So what it did was that it damaged the wire which was supposed to send heat into the windscreens to make it plastic. So it damaged the wire. So the implications are that now your windscreen is not turning into plastic anymore. Your windscreen is now like any glass that can be shattered by, you know, a throwing stone or anything, any glass. So what did we see? We started to see the windshield cracking. We began to see the windshield cracking, and we're like, okay. Now, luckily enough, in an aircraft, apart from all the things we were going through, if I should tell you what we saw at the back, maybe you will not fly again. All we heard at the back, Jesus. I mean, because as for the tossing up and down for that, a good 20 minutes is something even my captain and I celebrate every year. For the tossing up and down was one thing. Ice pellets coming to hit your windscreen to even crack the anti-icing system too was another story. The autopilot has stripped off on you. You are bouncing, you don't even know where you are. You don't even know whether you are going into a more intense one or not. And there's also that thing that it can also damage some part of the engines, you know, because if it does it to the engines too, another story. So all we had to do was to dive down. The issue is that we had to dive down to a temperature that is above 0 degrees. So once we get to a temperature that's above 0 degrees, then we are not thinking about icing, because once you know, the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. So guess what? The reverse is true. The lower you go, the warmer it becomes. So we had to dive, you know, and that whole experience for somebody who, like me, who was only 6 months on that aircraft. I just checked out on that airplane. I was only 6 months. I mean, I was barely a passenger on that aircraft. But I didn't know what was happening. So for me, I kept my cool, and I was like, hey, this thing looks, I've been through a bit of weather, but this one, that 20 minutes was like 10 years. I mean, everything odd works against you when you are in a thunderstorm. To control the aircraft, the icing things which can cause damage to others. It can even damage the instrument sensors. So that your speed, maybe my speed will be saying maybe 130 knots, the captain's speed is saying something like maybe 20. It can do everything to damage the structure of the aircraft. And these were things we were going through in our mind. But for some reason, I was just, till we dived. As soon as we dived down, at least to the place to say, because the aircraft was designed that it had an outer windscreen before an inner windscreen. So when the outer windscreens cracked, that was the emergency procedure we had to follow, is to dive to a point where the temperature of the air at that altitude is more than 0, then we don't think about ice anymore. Now it's just water. So we had to just dive. We were more than 30-something thousand feet. We had to dive down. That was also another experience altogether. Before we had a little bit of respite. But Mother Nature disciplined us for some good, I remember, some good 20 minutes. And trust me, when you're in that thunderstorm, 1 minute is like 1 year. I'm not frightening you, don't worry. You will never get into anything like that, you know. But 1 minute is like 1 year when you are in those kind of thunderstorms. So you can imagine the 20 minutes of good beating. I mean, at the airplane, it tossed up and down, and we saw the windscreen crack and everything. And trust me, I decided to respect Mother Nature from that day up until today. Because Mother Nature is not such that, oh, I've seen it so many times, so I have experienced the next time. No, Mother Nature every day has a different package. Okay, these are some of the things. I'm not saying a passenger will feel it, everybody will feel it. No, but these are some of the things in our career, throughout our career journey, we've seen that have made lots of, prints at the back of our mind. We've gone through several ones, but nothing surpasses this one on 25th August 1998, the day Mother Nature punished me. Okay, dedicated to Captain Fosu and everybody. But don't forget, I have an event which will be sharing more of these experiences called Before You Say I Wanna Be. December 18, 2021. Save that date. You will come and meet more aviators who have been in the industry for 40 years or more, who will be telling us so many things, interesting stories. Today we can laugh about it because so many things have improved. But the day Mother Nature punished us, 25th August 1998, Ouagadougou, Accra. More of these stories to come.